I definitely feel water cremation is going to be the future in Ireland. I think we'll be the largest supplier of funerals in Ireland in 10 years' time. So what water cremation is, it's that same chemical reaction that happens in the ground, but it's put under controlled conditions. So instead of 50 years in the ground, it takes 3 hours in our machine. With having a degree in mortuary science, I'm a mother of 6 children, we have a farm, I have the eyebrow business, and we're still the first and only water cremation facility in Europe.
And so that exclusivity means what? That no one else can do this?
Nobody else can do this, only me, for the next 20 years in Ireland.
Wow.
I just think it's unsustainable for us to keep burying coffins and burning them. The care and the respect of the deceased is paramount in everything that we do. But look, as I just say, we're all only walking each other home at the end of the day, isn't that it?
Welcome to the Dig podcast. I am your host and I am honoured to be your host. My name is Caroline O'Neill and the Dig podcast is my passion, telling real stories from real people about work, about life, about challenges, about the good times and the bad times. And I'm honoured to have you listen each week. I also am so grateful for you listening each week, but I've got a wee thing to ask you. So thousands and thousands of people download the podcast, but they still haven't hit subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify or Apple. So if you love the podcast and you like listening to the guests every week and you get great advice from them, then that's just my wee ask of you before we start today. If you could take time to just hit that follow button, hit that subscribe button, it means that I can keep reaching out to people and asking them to come on, and they know more about the podcast because of the algorithm and you hitting that follow button, and it helps the podcast grow. So that's just what I'm asking, a little bit of help on that today. During this podcast, we do discuss some sensitive topics, and I just wanted to give you a heads up before we get started. Now, have you ever thought about what's going to happen when you die? This is not a morbid conversation. This is a really actually uplifting one that we need to have, and one I would never have thought of having. Only I heard Elizabeth Oakes on the Tommy Tiernan show, actually. It was one Saturday night. I was sitting watching. I was like, who is this woman? And then I met her at an event, a Leo event, actually. I think it was the Lithe one, if Elizabeth will keep me right in a minute. But Elizabeth Oakes is the only, I'm going to get this right here, the only person in Ireland, UK, Europe with a water cremation facility. What is that? And she's the only person with a degree in mortuary science. That caught my attention significantly. I was like, what the hell is all of that? But also all her story around that as well. She's an unbelievable character. And she's here with me today on the Dig podcast. Thank you for being here, Elizabeth.
Thank you for having me, Caroline.
Was it the Live Leo event or where?
Meath.
That's right. And that's when I got to meet you in person. But for everybody that's listening on the Dig podcast that doesn't know you, tell us, what's your background story before we get into the great work that you're doing in this space? But take us back to the very start.
Well, I grew up on a farm in Navan. We had sheep and there was cattle, and horses would have been our big thing. From a very young age, I was always very entrepreneurial. It was, I think, just in my bones. And when I was 8 years old, my mum was doing the mini marathon, and I found £20 at the time in a bin when she was signing up. And on our way home from it, I bought 2 rabbits, and 2 rabbits became 36 rabbits. And then I had 18 guinea pigs and mice that I used to raffle at every birthday party I was invited to. And I ended up supplying all the pet shops around with the rabbits and the guinea pigs. And I was only 8 years old at the time. My poor mother had to ferry me here and there and everywhere. And with the profits I was making, I got a huge big pen made, and I was able to use the horse food to feed them and pull this big cage around the field for all the animals. So that was the start of the entrepreneurial spirit, let's say. Then when I got my confirmation money, there was 250 euros or pounds, I can't remember at the time. And that evening we heard about this pony that was for sale, and I went and bought this pony. It nearly killed me for the whole summer. And then at the end of the summer it was flying, and I actually sold it to Italy and got £800. So that was, again, another string in the bow. And just things went on from there. When I went to secondary school, as luck would have it, they were doing renovations on the school, and we were put in prefabs outside of the main building. And I saw an opportunity for a tuck shop run because nobody wanted to go outside in the cold to get their sweets. So I went over to the nun in the tuck shop and I did a deal with her whereby I didn't have to stand in the queue. I'd just come in with my list, fill the bags with the sweets that I had, and the deal was that I didn't give any change. So when I go around to all the classes, I'd take, okay, Caroline, you want this, this and this, and I'd say that'll roughly come to €2.50, but you have to give me €3 for going. And I was making about €150 a week by just going to school. So needless to say, I never missed a day. I used to get certificates for attendance because I was always afraid someone else would take my job if I missed a day or two. And then when it came to doing the leaving cert, I'm going to say I haven't been diagnosed with dyslexic, but I'm nearly sure I am. My reading and writing would be very, very difficult. I found it difficult in school for concentration and for reading and writing, and that's still the case today. So I knew academics or college really wasn't going to be for me at that stage. And our career guidance teacher gave us a FOSS disc, and I went through every career on it to see which was the shortest amount of time in education, but kind of where you had the best return. And on this disc it said embalmer, and it was a 1-year apprenticeship in Mayo. And I don't know, I can't even remember, said you got 30 or 40,000 thereafter. And because it was an apprenticeship, you were working and you were getting paid from the get-go. And all I had to do was an interview to get on the course. So lo and behold, my mum rang the Irish College of Funeral Directors and Embalmers, and I got accepted on the course. So I was 17 at the time, and I went down there. I did a 1.5 years and completed my course. But in Ireland, the funeral directing and embalming, it's an unregulated industry. So I got a certificate of completion, but I just felt that people deserved more, and I was so engrossed in this now, and I was good at it. I felt I wanted to do more about it. And the man said to me, well, you can go to America and get a degree in mortuary science. And I was only 17, 18, and I said, right, sign me up. And off I went to America. I went to Cyprus College. It was a 3-year bachelor degree course in Cyprus College. My reading, this is no word of a lie, but my English reading and writing was so bad. I actually had to do English as a second language because I didn't pass the exam to not have to do it. Mm-hmm. So I had to do English as a second language, like as if English was my second language. So I had to do English along with the degree in mortuary science, and I got a business degree as well at the same time. Because when I was there, I was only allowed to study. I wasn't allowed to work or do anything like that. So I just studied, and yeah, I got my degree in mortuary science. I was lucky though, when I was there, one of my teachers had a thing called permanent makeup. It was a 2-day course at the time, and my sister shaved my eyebrows when I was younger, and I just thought this teacher was coming in with her makeup on perfect every day, and I said, how is she doing that? And she said to me, that's permanent makeup. And I said, well, I better get some of that. And it was $50 to be a guinea pig. And the woman who owned the school, it was called the International Institute of Permanent Makeup, she just kind of took me under her wing. We just clicked and got on great. I'd say she thought I was probably going to kill myself over there in America on my own. She thought somebody's going to have to look after this one. And any time off, I would always volunteer down with her and help her in her school. So it was great because I got my qualification in permanent makeup when I was in America also. When I came back then, I was 21.
Let me jump in, right? Because when you're just saying it there, like, oh, I went and I done embalming, and then I went to America and I'm studying mortuary science. It's not probably the most traditional career to choose either as a young girl. And all. What was everybody's reaction at home, and your mummy and all? And like, was everybody like, were they shocked that this was the route you were going to go down? Because when you think of embalming and all, but you're going to talk to us about what that process is, because a few of the team and myself here clueless about this. What was everybody like? No bother, Liz? Or were they shocked you were going to do this? Or
I was. My mum was super supportive, and because we grew up on a farm, life and death was just part of the day. And then I minded my both grandaunts. I used to put them on the commode every night when I was in 5th and 6th class in school. And then when they passed, I helped lay them out. So, you know, it was all part of my childhood, really. And then when I said I was going to be an embalmer, now my dad was going around telling everyone I was going to be a guard. Because he, you know, his little girl going off to do this, I don't know, he was probably a bit embarrassed about it. Whereas my mum was fine about it. And I remember when people, I'd be chatting up fellas, or they'd be chatting up me, they used to think I was saying I'm an embalmer, and they'd say, you're a barmaid. So then I'd be like, no, an embalmer. So that was a good topic of conversation then.
And then, what happened then? You said you came home from America after you got your degree, and then what happened?
Well, when I came home, I was only 21 and I was female, obviously. And I went around, I had great ambitions and desires, but I went round to the funeral directors of Ireland, a lot of them, or as many locally as I could, and I tried to pitch a trade embalming service and lots of different things, but I think I was just the wrong gender and the wrong age. I felt I wasn't taken seriously. So when I was in America, I had seen this water cremation technology as part of the UCLA body donation program. 20 years ago in Ireland, sustainability wasn't even a word. So it probably didn't resonate with me at the time, but I remember I was fascinated by the machinery, what it was able to do, how clean it was compared to the flame cremation. And it really struck a chord with me, and I kept it, I'm going to say, in my hat for a long time. When I came home, I felt the industry didn't take me seriously, so I pursued then the permanent makeup for the last 22 years. And it's lucky that I did, because I built up a great trust with people who were letting me, for want of a better word, tattoo on their eyebrows for various different reasons. It can be cosmetic, it can be because they're going through treatment. And not only did it give me, I suppose, that I was proven as a business person, I got a good social media following, and people trusted me as a person then. And I was at a funeral directors convention. It was in Ireland, and there was 2 speakers over from America. It was about 9 years ago. And they just happened to say, like, there was 90 funeral directors in this room. They just happened to say how alkaline hydrolysis, which is water cremation, was gaining huge popularity in America. And that was my light bulb moment. I looked around the room and I could see nobody else, because they didn't know what it was, it didn't click with them. But because I had seen the machine and understood the process, this was it. So the following week I had went over to the company in the UK who make the machine, and I signed up a 20-year exclusivity. And with having a degree in mortuary science, I'm a mother of 6 children. We have a farm. I have the eyebrow business. I suppose, and negotiating with them, they thought I would have been the best person to promote their product going forward. And we're still the first and only water cremation facility in Europe.
And so that exclusivity means what? That no one else can do this?
Nobody else can do this, only me, for the next 20 years in Ireland.
Wow, that's unbelievable. Right, let's talk about what it is. First of all, you've got 6 children.
6 kids.
And you're doing all of this. What ages are they?
I had 6 under 7, so I'd one every 15 months. So God, it was busy times, or still is. So the eldest is 9, right down to 1 at the minute.
Wow. At the minute? What do you mean? Is there more?
Oh no, there's no more coming. He's nearly 2.
Okay, all right, okay. Right, so apart from all the work you're doing, you're also a busy mummy as well.
Yeah.
But you're not stopping. So let's talk about, because when I wanted you to come on the podcast, you've stayed in my mind because you're so lovely to speak to and so willing to share the information. But this whole topic of death, what to do when you die, does your family know what you want? What do you want? Do we even know what's out there? I don't. The team didn't today when you arrived. I think it's important to have this conversation. It can feel morbid, but actually, like you said, on the farm, it's part of life, isn't it? Living and dying. So what is, take it back, tell us again, what is this service? What do you do?
So our company name is Pure Reflections. And where the water cremation came from is when a body is buried in the ground, there's a chemical reaction that happens between the soil bacteria and the body. That chemical reaction is called alkaline hydrolysis, and that's what brings the body back to nature over time. But what's happened now is people are embalmed, they're wearing polyester clothing, they're in a heavy duty plastic lined coffin, and then you have the coffin itself. So in actual fact, it can take 50 or 60 years if that decomposition process ever really fully happens. So what water cremation is, it's that same chemical reaction that happens in the ground, but it's put under controlled conditions. So instead of 50 years in the ground, it takes 3 hours in our machine. And I'm going to say similar, there's no burning in our process. a lot of people say, is it acid? No, it's the complete opposite of an acid. It's an alkaline. It uses 95% water, 5% alkaline. And that's what speeds up the natural decomposition. So when I open the machine after 3 hours, all that's left are the skeletal remains. So the bones are there. Similar to flame cremation. So with flame cremation, the body, the coffin and everything is placed into what we call a retort. That's all burnt. So the flesh is burnt off the bones. The coffin itself is burnt. And then what happens is the crematory operator, which I was over in America myself, they rake the ashes. When they say ashes, it's actually the bone fragments. So the bones, now there are coffin matter, clothes matter and everything like that, but the rake gets the bones and kind of separates the dusty coffin material from the bones. So the bones are what's raked to the front of a retort in a flame cremation. They fall into a steel bucket because they're very hot and they're left to cool. With water cremation, we hand pick the bones from the tray. They're put into a dryer and they're dried for 2 hours. Then they're put into what's called a cremulator. So this is a standard piece of equipment that's in every crematory. And what it does is it just pulverizes the bones down to that fine white powder that's put into the urn and given back to the family.
I just want to take a minute in the podcast to tell you all about our brilliant sponsor, McNichol Caravans. Are you looking for a getaway that feels like it was made just for you and your family? So whether that's slow mornings by the sea, last minute weekend escapes, or a place where your kids will always remember, McNichol Caravans help you create the lifestyle that you've been dreaming of. For over 45 years, the McNichol family have built that dream for families across Ireland. Today, the tradition continues with the next generation, Shauneen, Aisling and Leanne and their partners, proudly working alongside Michael and Colette with the same values of care, commitment and a deep sense of family at the heart of everything they do. With 7 beautiful parks and caravans supplied to top locations in the North Coast for Fermanagh, Downings, Clonmany and Mullaghmore, they're committed to helping you find your perfect home from home, just like they've done for generations. Start your own legacy of memories and visit mcnicholcaravans.com today, because your lifestyle deserves this. And now back to our guest.
So with a flame cremation and with a water cremation, you're essentially getting the same thing. You're getting the bones of your loved one, but with water cremation, there's no carbon emissions. It's actually carbon neutral, and you're getting 50% more of your loved one because every bone is completely saved. In the flame cremation process, a lot of the smaller bones of the body just go up the stack, and that's just part of it. Whereas in water cremation, everything is saved. And not only that, we recycle all the metals, and we have an infant loss program. So any metals, so hips, knees, prosthetics, they all go for recycling. And if more people choose resomation over flame cremation, we would hope to offer all infant loss for free. And these prosthetics from a water cremation, because they're like brand new, they're like the day they were put in, they yield 10 times the profit value when recycled compared to flame cremation prosthetics, because their values, because of the burning, are completely lost. So it's more beneficial overall for people to choose the resomation going forward. I just think it's unsustainable for us to keep burying coffins and burning them. It's just, it's not a sustainable business practice. And that's another thing with the coffin itself. I approached the Funeral Directors Association about offering families rental coffins, and they said they just don't want to know anything about it because their business model profits off the sale of the coffin.
Right. Okay. So you just talk. You would know you're surrounded by this type of language every day. I am not. So I am taking a breath. I'm like, oh my gosh, just talking there about bones and body and flesh. But that's your job. That's your profession, right? So I'm just taking a minute here to understand this and to try to realize this is just human biology and things that happen, right? But that bit about the rental coffin. So when someone passes away and they get a coffin is a certain price bracket, just to figure out what way this works. So why would they be renting one instead of buying? What do you mean by that?
So in our facility, if somebody wants to have a committal service,
which is,
they want to say the prayers or have a celebration life service, but they want the body present, we offer a rental coffin. We charge €600 for the use of the coffin, and we just change the lining in it like you would a hotel bed. Just because someone has been in it before doesn't mean it can't be used again. Whereas the funeral directors don't want to offer that. They just want to sell the coffins. because obviously there's a huge profit margin on the sale of a coffin compared to if they were to rent it.
And that's okay. That's their business model and
Yeah.
that works for them. But some people maybe want to go down the more economical, sustainable route, and this is the way they wanted it. So it's to show the both options, I suppose,
Yeah.
as well. But so cost wise, to use your service is definitely more cost effective. Is that what the right way to say it?
Yeah. The way I see funerals going in the future are 1 in 2 people now die of cancer. So they're surrounded by their loved ones as they pass. And what we're seeing anyway from doing final wishes with people is they're happy for us to then come, take them for wherever they pass. We bring the person to our facility in a private ambulance and a stretcher. We'll perform the resomation, and then we'll guarantee to have the urn back to the family within 4 working days. So then the family can still have a funeral mass or a celebration of life service. The only difference is the body is in the urn instead of the body in the coffin. But you're eliminating a lot of that unnecessary expense of the coffin, the embalming, and the hearse, all of that stuff.
Right, okay. So it's going to get people thinking. I've heard you say all this before, but it was actually last year, so it's all come back to me now. But when I left that day, I was like, that's how I would like my service, or not how I would like, what way do you say it? When you die, that's how I would like what? That's how I would like to...
Your final farewell.
That's what way I would... I liked the fact that it wasn't burial and it wasn't cremation, that it was a different way to do it. I told it at home. Didn't go down the same way at home. Everybody's different, aren't they? Like,
Everybody's different.
Different ways of thinking, but I liked that kind of way you were talking. And then what about that caring process that you do? Like you talked about that day, how much respect and all, which I'm sure everybody in the industry has, but you had a great way of telling, what way you treat people and
yeah, well, I would be very, maybe not religious, but spiritual. And I definitely think, like, I feel people's presence when I'm with them. With the resomation process, so I have to physically, we're physically in contact with the person as we place them into the machine. So it's not like just another number. We have that physical contact, we see them. And every time I always say to them, we'll see you on the other side before I close the door. And everyone means so much to me. And I definitely think my people find me. The people, like, I've had funerals from all sorts of places, and it's amazing the people that find me I would resonate with in life, so it's a funny one, but definitely the care and the respect of the deceased is paramount in everything that we do, so
and you talked about the unregulated kind of way that the industry is, that you really do need to be doing due diligence about who's looking after your loved one when they pass.
Absolutely. I think if we were even sending our pets to get groomed, you'd want to see the facility where they're going and who's looking after them, who's going to be doing it, and are they qualified. Whereas with the funeral industry, it is an unregulated industry. You don't actually have to have any qualification in Ireland to be an embalmer. You don't have to have any qualification in Ireland to be a funeral director. So it's an unregulated industry. And I think people need to know that, because it's important that they know who is caring for their loved one. Just because they've passed doesn't mean that they should be taken away by anyone.
I know. And then what is the cost difference? Can you break it down, like what it would be to get a service? You saw it on your website anyway, but just for people who are on the podcast here.
So a full funeral service through Pure Reflections anywhere in Ireland is 3,700, and that includes collection of the deceased wherever in the country, the resomation process itself. We look after all the doctor's fees, the coroner's fees, so there's a good bit goes on behind the scenes for all that. And the urn itself is included, and we'll hand deliver the urn back to the family within the 4 working days. So the average cost, it was in the Independent only last year, I think the average cost of a funeral in Ireland is around 6,500. So we do, as it's sustainable, and it's obviously much more affordable also. But price it's not all about price. Yeah. Funerals either. It's about, my feeling is, it's about offering people choice. So many people now don't want an open coffin. They don't want anyone to look at them. They don't want to be laid out. So if that is the situation, why should they have to purchase a coffin?
Yeah, I know.
It's a huge expense.
Especially in Ireland, this would be completely a conversation that would never be, like, we were traditionally the wake, you lay out for 2 days. That old thing about a wake, you're sitting around in case they wake up. That's like the old tradition and all. it's a big kind of shift in mindset, isn't it? But you can see it happening, obviously. Like,
Yeah, when you look at the trends in America and in the UK and things like that, as you know, every generation is changing, and the young people are so connected now to social media and devices. They don't want to be brought to funeral homes and have to stand and pick coffins. They would rather if they could do that from the comfort of their own home and stuff like that. So that's where I find, or nobody likes having to make funeral arrangements. Usually they say the average person will make a funeral arrangement once, maybe twice in their life. So nobody knows what to do, where to go. I often say death is a little bit like childbirth. Everyone talks about the birth, but nobody explains to you the aftermath or what happens next. It's the same with death. Everyone talks about the death, but when somebody actually passes, nobody knows. Do we ring the doctor? Do we ring the ambulance? Do we ring the funeral director? Where do we go?
everybody, there's always somebody seems to know what to do, but like I wouldn't know what to do. And so far, thank God, but it comes to everybody's door. I haven't had to do that yet, but there always seems to be some organizer, but they're maybe just making choices that's been ingrained into them through traditions and generations, not out of knowledge, really.
Yes.
And that's really, and it's about choice, as you said, but I think a lot of people won't realise there's other choices out there.
Yeah, well, that's why it's great to be able to get the information out there, to let people realise there are other ways, you know, and there is choice available, and there's sustainable choices available as well. Like, I have 6 children. I want them to grow up in a greener environment, you know, and I want to try and do my bit for their generation.
And what have you seen any, like, has there been some really positive stories of families that maybe didn't realise this was there, and then their loved one had chosen this, and then they were so, like, I mean, is there any stories that you can tell us about any great?
Yeah, I've loads. Like, what I've
Without
done,
obviously disclosing anybody.
yeah, because we hand deliver the urn back, you know, we get to meet the people, talk to the people, see how they came about choosing Resomation. Maybe it's from seeing me on the Tommy Tiernan show. We run educational events. I have open days. You know, maybe they follow me on social media. So it's amazing how, yeah, like, you just connect with these people over time, and it sticks in their mind. And they say to someone, "Look, when I died, that's what I want," and that's it. We look after a lot of infant deaths as well, because maybe for families handing their loved ones or the babies really over to a woman who has 6 children, and thinking of the water compared to flame is just a gentler
Thought process for them.
process for them as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things available, and we cover nationwide funeral services, so we're available to everybody.
Do you come up against much resistance? You know, I know you mentioned the funeral industry, but in general, from people when you would go to talk about this, what is there much resistance, or are people open to hearing? Or, like, I'm not sure, like the Dig podcast listener, what they're going to say when they hear this, but I wanted to talk about it because I think, as you say, births are important, but also so is the death process. So what's the general reaction when you talk about this?
I think most people now, probably since COVID, and because death was at the forefront of our minds every day for 2 years, people are much more open to talking about death and dying and their wishes and how they'd like to be cared for and what they'd like for end of life. Before that, it was a little bit more closed shop, but definitely since COVID, people are more aware of how fickle our lives really are. We could be here today and gone tomorrow. So that has definitely changed. There's still people, when I say what I do, they nearly think by talking about it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So I often say it's like talking about getting pregnant. Just because you're talking about it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Just
you have to take action.
Yeah,
Something has to happen.
Exactly. So, but look, as I just say, we're all only walking each other home at the end of the day, isn't that it?
I know. And what advice do people, like, I mean, that whole, say that was something that I would like, what do you need to put in place for that to happen? Is that just literally telling your loved ones that that's what you like to do? What way does that work?
If you go onto our website, purereflections.ie, there's actually a free form you can just download there, and it's our final wishes form. So it asks all the relevant questions, and you can just document what you'd like. And you keep that, make a copy of it, maybe give a copy to your solicitor, but make sure and give it to your family member is the most important, or whoever will be looking after your funeral, it will say, so that they know clearly what your wishes are.
definitely some people don't do, I don't think.
I know.
Even think about. And you'll meet, I've talked to a lot of people about different things over the years, and they say, well, I don't want to think about that until it comes. But then sometimes then your wishes might not be granted, or, you know, it just doesn't go the way. And then people say, well, sure, it doesn't matter, you're dead. But then your family are the ones as well who are trying to navigate what would they wanted, what should we do? So it's just important you maybe outline it if that is what you want.
It's so important to have your final wishes in place. I think it's the last great thing you can do for your family is to leave clear instruction, because the stress, the trauma, the financial uncertainty, just been asked to make such huge decisions at such a vulnerable time is terrible, you know. Whereas, and I actually think if somebody has their wishes in order, the family go into a different mode. It's like they're organized and they want to get this done for that person. You know, it's whereas when they don't know, it creates a lot of chaos, you know. And we offer prepaid funeral plans as well, where we guarantee if you prepay for your funeral, you can pay for it over 12, 24 months. We'll guarantee we'll never ask you for a penny more, you know. And even that alone, because nobody knows what prices the funeral is going to be. And I know some older people think it's going to cost tens of thousands, whereas, you know, when we clearly document this is how much it's going to be, that's how much you're going to have to pay, and that's it, you'll never have to. The relief they get from just having everything in order. And some people nowadays I find are so organised in life that they just love having everything arranged and sorted and not have to worry about it then. It's like another box ticked.
Oh my God. It's fascinating conversation, and I'm still equally fascinated today listening. So you're still doing your cosmetic work as well as this, your 6 kids. You know, what's the biggest challenge through all of that? Is it just juggling it all, or what is the...
Given the time to each child, that one-to-one interaction and time. Now, I have a great life. I think I have a good balance, you know, but you never feel you're doing the kids justice, do you? Like you always want to spend more time with them.
I know. But are you full-time, are you part-time at both and just juggling through them all? I mean, as in your cosmetics and your Pure Reflections?
So I love my eyebrow clinic. I love meeting the people. I love having the stories. And it's also a great way for me to tell people about what we offer in Pure Reflection. So I do my eyebrow clinics every Monday and Friday. And then there's another girl there and she does during the week. We have the clinic in Dublin and in Cork. So that works away. And I'm going to say I needed to keep tipping along, because that's what's financing or has financed the water cremation. Without that, I wouldn't have my water cremation facility, you know what I mean? So I love that business and I'll be forever grateful to it and for it. But I definitely feel water cremation is going to be the future in Ireland. I think we'll be the largest supplier of funerals in Ireland in 10 years' time. I actually think there's going to be that much of a shift in the industry. And, you know, I know traditional funerals are great, and each passing, I suppose, a different funeral suits that. If somebody has lived a good full life, they're surrounded by their family as they pass, maybe what I offer is great for that. But if it's a young person, unexpected or tragic, I definitely think the wake and going back to the house and allowing people the time to come to terms with what has happened is very beneficial also. So there's something for everyone. We work through all the funeral directors of Ireland, so anyone can go into the funeral director and request resomation, or they can come directly to us. So it's open to all.
Yeah, because there's the whole piece there of if you do have the traditional wake and you're laid out for 2 days, then you need to be embalmed for that to happen, which means then you can't do your processes.
No, you can. Yeah, the embalming doesn't affect our process whatsoever.
Oh, right, okay. So you can still have the traditional wake, but perhaps that's the final piece that goes with you.
Absolutely. So instead of going to the flame cremator, you can go for resomation instead. It doesn't matter if you're embalmed or not embalmed. None of that makes a difference to the resomation process itself.
And just out of curiosity then, how do the churches, the clergy and all the different churches react to this type of, have they got any feelings on this? Have you ever heard anybody reacting to it in a way that you think, well, you know, I'm just wondering, I'm thinking about our local priests and all. I'm thinking, wonder has this ever happened?
Well, it's funny you say that because Archbishop Desmond Tutu was in South Africa, and there was a huge funeral for him, and he chose resomation. He wanted a very simple funeral, and he chose resomation. So that was fantastic because it was just about the time when I was opening. And we have priests coming regularly doing the committal services at our facility. And would you believe it, only the other day there was a priest came for a show around and to understand the process because he wants resomation for himself.
Good. Okay.
So
That's so interesting to hear, because I was like, wonder, is there resistance because it's not the traditional way that it's always been done? But things change. We all change.
Yeah.
Life's changing, evolving, changing all the time. Wonder, has AI got any place in your industry? Like, I mean, have you heard any buzz about that, about any kind of artificial intelligence with the work that you do?
unless we had a robot, but I don't think so. That'd take the personalisation
It
out
would,
of it,
but
wouldn't it?
there's probably is more things going to come into play in that whole landscape as well, of life or death and all of that. But I was just wondering if there was anything coming up. But I don't think anybody could ever replace you, Elizabeth, and
No, I think
the work that you do. So what's the one thing you would like people to know, or a myth to dispel about what's the word you use to say the death? What's the word you use to describe what you do?
resomation.
Resomation.
Well, there's a couple of things, I guess. People think that it's acid, but it's not. It's the complete opposite. It's alkaline.
Okay.
Then people think the water boils. The water doesn't boil. It does heat up to a certain temperature. And the body isn't submerged. It's actually, the water's just circulated, gently washed over the body. So some people say to me, oh God, I'd be afraid of drowning. But I say, no, it's more like a hot shower. So there are two things really that would be important for people to know. And again, it's the most environmentally friendly alternative. They say burial is the least environmentally friendly, but it's because of the space, the land usage that it takes up. And not only that, with the embalming and all the chemical formaldehyde, glutaraldehyde seeping back into the water course over time isn't a great thing to be doing.
Something that you were talking about before, which none of us were aware. I've never really done this before, but behind the scenes of the podcast, I have a whole team. Is there anything the team would like to ask based on what Elizabeth was saying that we didn't cover? Any question?
If whenever there's like the person's passing, the family still have to contact the funeral director, or can they just contact you directly and you take care of everything from the scratch? Like,
yeah, they can just contact us and we take care of everything from scratch. So we essentially are then your funeral director.
just wanted to ask, like, so how busy are you? How many have you got per week, for example?
So as you know, the funeral industry is very traditional, but in our first year of business, we did over 100 funerals. So we're averaging about 2 funerals a week. And I could just see that'll, as more people, it's not like a domino effect. So a lot of people don't know that this water cremation or resomation exists. And then when it goes onto the likes of RIP, then people see it. And next thing you know, we'll have huge hits on the website. And it's them people's interest, and then we get more inquiries, and it's kind of like a domino effect. So it's nice the way it's been slow and steady, because like that, from the day I opened to what I'm doing now, we do things a lot differently, and you need that little bit of time to find what it is the best.
How do you like advertise your services? How do you let people know that this is available? Because like, if obviously, you know, people have to know about you. So apart from social media, like, what are your channels?
But word of mouth, I always think, is the best. So, you know, when a family come to us and have a good experience, they tell so many more. And that is definitely the best way that we have found, is word of mouth. We do outdoor advertising through Pizzazz Media, an outdoor advertising company, and then we have a radio ad as well. So we do a couple of...
Find the reactions of people, like how people react whenever we learn about this service, because I wouldn't know. I would never know about it.
When people ring me, they congratulate me and they say, thanks so much. Like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. You know, that's a lot of the times when people find it, they're like, oh, this is it. You know, I knew there was something different, and that's how then we gain traction.
So this is very kind of, I don't even know, like, is it all right to ask things like this? But I know I don't really know. I can't believe I don't even know this, but what is the embalming process? Maybe everybody knows this is listening. They're like, Caroline, I can't believe you don't know that. But what is it? What is that? What happens?
So what happens is when somebody passes, the blood stops circulating in the body, and the blood then flows to the most dependent parts of the body. That's how we would know if somebody was moved in a crime scene, because the blood goes to the most dependent parts of the body. So let's say I die and I'm lying back like this, the bottom half of me, you will see the blood there, and it stains the skin. But then if you were to pull me over there and move me and I was on my face, the forensics would know that I had been moved because the front isn't discoloured, you know. So what the embalming process do is we make a small incision in the neck here, and we lift the carotid artery and the jugular vein. We mix our 2 gallons of formaldehyde chemical, and that is then put in through a cannula through the carotid artery, and that goes around the whole circulatory system. We actually put our cosmetizing, so people think we just put makeup on the top, but actually the makeup is done from the inside more so than the outside. So the embalming chemical has the colorant in it to pinky up the skin and stuff like that. So as the chemical goes in through the carotid artery and around the whole circulatory system, it pushes all the blood out the jugular vein, and that blood does go just down the sewer. It's completely untreated, which I think there should be some regulation on, to be honest, because with the diseases and stuff that people are dying of now, it's important that we know what's going into our water course. Then
Stop. There's no procedure for that? There's no regulation for that or anything?
no,
Anywhere? Like, I mean,
in Southern Ireland, no.
okay, I'm not sure about the north. Okay.
Yeah.
So if anybody's listening to this and they're thinking, that's wrong in the north, Elizabeth's based in the south. So that's for the south. So we must
Yeah.
find out if that's the case in the north. Okay. And is there any work being done around that? Surely that's not okay.
I think until there's a big drama.
Oh, maybe this is the drama. I don't know, but that does not sound okay.
No, but look, that's the way it's been done. It's
Right,
been done for years,
right.
and it's still been done that way. So
Would you like that? You'd obviously like that to change.
I would,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, I definitely would. I think there needs to be some sort of regulation on that. You know,
Absolutely.
I know the regulation I had to go through to put complete sterile water with no DNA that's highly fertile in nature, that in America, after the water cremation process, they actually give the water to nurseries to be put onto trees because it's highly fertile. Yet I had to go through 3.5 years of testing with Irish Water to put completely sterile water in the drain.
Yes.
Yet if I wanted to be an embalmer and put raw blood, sewage and everything down, I wouldn't have had to go through the same rigmarole that I did with the water cremation.
I'm flabbergasted by that. I just can't get over that. So, right. So that's how embalming happens.
Well, then that's only the first part. So then what happens is, obviously, in end of life, if you're after eating food, the food is still in your stomach, and that's what causes swelling. So the abdomen swells, and if the abdomen swells, it'll put pressure on the lungs, the heart, the stomach, and that's when we say the body can purge, so things can come out the nose and the mouth.
Okay.
So there's a trocar, and it just punctures the different organs and also punctures the intestines to take any of that gas and fecal matter out of the body as well.
There's people who this is probably going to be too much for. They don't even want to hear this bit, but I suppose education is key. People need to know what's happened.
The people need to know what happens.
Aye, like you'd want to know. I would want to know. I want to know. Some people say I don't want to know. So maybe just tell them before we put this podcast out. In this podcast, you might hear this. So you can decide yourself. Choice is key. But I wanted to know. The team beforehand were like, oh, tell us what that is. We didn't know either. So fascinating again that we wouldn't know what was going to happen to us whenever we die.
Mm-hmm.
And that there might not be the right regulations in place in that way. But I can sense you might be going to make changes in that space, hopefully.
Hopefully. As I say, with the kids coming along, like I'd like to build something that's going to be a legacy for them. They're not saying none of them might embrace it, and anytime they get the microphone in the funeral home there, the only song they know is Staying Alive, so I don't know if I'm going to have much hope. But you never know.
So yeah, like you bring a great kind of sense of well, there's a wee bit of humour as well, and when you're talking about all of this, but a realism that it's part of life, and it's great if we can talk about it. And you've really opened up our minds here today as the whole podcast team into that conversation. It's not always easy to talk about, especially if someone's lost someone. Everybody that you lost in your family is mostly like there's trauma and grief and all associated with it. It can be hard to think about maybe what they went through when they died, when they hear that, or what they might go through when they're going to die. But it's also important we know. So I'm so happy that you came on the Dig podcast today. Is there anything else you want to tell people, or how can they reach out to you now? Your website, what is it?
Our website, so we have the www.pureflections.ie, and also for the eyebrows is www.elizabethoaks.ie. And we have obviously our social media pages on Instagram and Facebook for both businesses as well. So yeah, you can reach out to me there.
Unbelievable. Good luck with all your work that you're doing. Let us know if anybody gets in touch that has listened to it on the Dig podcast. We'd love to know, and we'll tell you any feedback that we get as well, because it's a real thing. It's happening, and it's a movement like in that space, and incredible to see. And incredible to see a woman in business with 6 kids being able to do all of that as well. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.